All right, so you want to get into riding, or you're in the market for a new bike, but you want to figure out which bike is the right bike to get, because unfortunately, your first bike will probably be the wrong one. Now, are you looking at more of the sweet and naked sport bikes, more of the full-on race bikes, more of the cruisers, more adventure bikes? We're going to get into that in this video and to help you make that right choice.
You make a choice knowing there's always a chance it's the wrong one. You know that.
No matter what choice I make, it's always the wrong one!
You chose poorly.
Let's hope not.
Now, guys, if you're looking at picking your first bike up, I got my buddy Zane here. We're going to be chatting about what is different genres or classifications or features on bikes that we found it's necessary to understand and know. The first thing that we felt with technology that's really important on our outline for this is ABS or anti-lock brake system. One thing that stood out to me that really made me decide to get a newer bike with ABS is the video of the rider in wet conditions with and without ABS, and how easy it was able to dump the bike as well as to stop the bike. ABS versus traction control, because I think that's an important thing to understand and differentiate.
I mean, in my opinion, ABS is the single biggest development in motorcycles in my life. There are so many braking mistakes that you see out there of people just grabbing too much brake too quickly, and the bike goes down real fast, especially if you're turning at all. And it's something that you can just jump right on. So it doesn't change the way you operate. It doesn't change the way you slowly, progressively add some brake, and it's relatively slow. You can do it fairly quickly, but just not abruptly. You still operate it the same way, whether you're on an ABS bike or not. It's just if you overdo it, the ABS is going to keep you up in the vast majority of situations. Certainly you can overwhelm the ABS if you're in a turn hard. But then there's also lean sensitive ABS, where the motorcycle will factor in your lean angle and how much traction you're theoretically using for the turn versus the brakes. And it helps you stay in the lane. So without it, you kind of run wide, and with it, you can kind of maintain your turn radius. In terms of traction control versus ABS, really, really, really talented riders can do better than a lot of the traction control. ABS, you're not going to beat the ABS. You're not going to get to the point where you've got more skill than the ABS. You can't outbrake that. Whereas, traction control, if you're really good, yeah, it can get in your way.
We're walking a thin line here. Is it worth it?
When you're looking at the research that I came upon, having ABS versus non-ABS, there was a 22% decrease in fatal accidents. If we're just looking at ABS, that 22% is significant. So whatever I can control, I want to control it. And I feel like that's why we put this first, is ABS. It's for sure worth it.
Yeah, and you talk about fatalities, and yeah, obviously we're all worried about, getting killed on a bike, but the other factor is wrecks, just dropping it and being okay. You're wearing gear and you're not going all that fast, but you locked up your front tire for just a little bit too long and you're down and your bike's, all sorts of messed up.
Sad. It's totally sad.
And so you avoid all that, as well.
Do you have anything else you want to add with ABS?
Yeah, I would just say a lot of people, when you're in an emergency situation, there's a phenomenon that happens to a lot of people where you think you're acting in normal speed, but your thought process is sped up because of your fight or flight reaction. And so you may think you're slowly getting on the brakes and you're being reasonable, but you're doing it faster than you ever have. And you lock it up and you're down. Whereas if you do that with ABS will save it.
So the next thing, what could you see yourself, or even if you're an experienced rider, what do you see yourself getting into or wanting to use the bike for? Because there's one bike does not fit all. Narrowed a few things down when it comes to the different genres. Is there anything you wanted to focus on first when it comes to primary uses?
Yeah, absolutely. So, in terms of somebody that's looking to buy a new motorcycle, they're really going to be looking at what does it look like? Does this look cool to me?
How'd I look, man?
That is going to be a pretty high on the list. But outside of that, you gotta ask, am I going to be commuting at this? Am I going to be going on long day rides, weekend trips? and knowing that it's going to work for what you need it. You know, when it's going to be, if it's going to be comfortable enough for you to do an all-day ride. You know, it really kind of goes into comfort as well. Comfort is a very individual thing. You can't really look at a motorcycle and say, yeah, that cruisers are comfortable, or sport bikes are absolutely, and you cannot take them on a long trip because it's gonna kill your wrists. Maybe there's some general rules along those lines, and cruisers probably tend to be more comfortable for most people. And most people can't do a long ride on a sport bike, but I'm just the opposite. Cruisers kill my lower back unless I've got some kind of, you know, sissy bar.
I'll take you on, you sissy!
Or something that I'm leaning against absolutely destroys my back. And I've done really long trips, all day trips on a super sport, just a full on, you know, race position, and I'm fine with it. Renting motorcycles is a really good way to figure some
Yeah.
of those things out. Riders share is kind of like an Airbnb for motorcycles. You can shop in your area and see what's available, and before you make a big commitment, because that's one of the things about motorcycles is you're probably not going to get to do a test ride.
Right.
Most dealerships aren't going to let you, and even if they do, it's not for very long, so you just get a rough
Yeah.
sense of what it's like. If you can rent a bike that's either the same thing that you're looking to buy or something very similar, it's going to answer a lot of questions for you.
Perhaps I did not make myself clear. What is the answer to the equation?
Going back, what I remember doing is I am not a cruiser person. My dad is, but I have never been gravitated to that. And so I knew that I wanted to be more of a sporty individual, but I didn't know the difference between a full on sport bike versus a naked bike until we started getting into the different aspects of it. So, one thing for the primary use is, where do you live? What group of friends do you have? What roads are around you? So you got to figure out what you want to do with your personality. Are you more out in the country
Well, howdy, ma'am. How are you today?
where there's gravel roads, but you still want to ride a bike, but not a dirt bike? So what is your primary use? What do you think you want to do, and start there?
And I think that's why I would personally recommend something that you like the looks of, but is very versatile. It can do all these things so that you can explore all these different branches and see what you really like and gravitate towards. And, you know, if you say, for example, you've got a dual sport, you know, with off-road tires, you know, you may never get to a position where you realize, you know what, I love sport bikes. I love taking turns hard. Or if you're on a cruiser, and I've seen brand new riders, people that just got their license, didn't even own a bike yet, and they rent a cruiser, and within a couple hours, they're scraping the peg and bumping up against the limits of the bike. My recommendation would be something that's really versatile, something like a Kawasaki Z400. Kind of gives you everything, and you can kind of explore and then go from there. You're not going to get the perfect bike the first time. I'm pretty sure you'll like it.
Hey, Brad, did you see Dad's motorcycle?
You know, if you do a little bit of research and you kind of consider all these things, you're still going to be really happy. And, you know, it's fun to have a dream bike. You know, my next
Hmm.
bike is going to be this or that because I want to gravitate towards this side or that side of things. That's
Yeah,
my recommendation.
we're just talking about like that first one bike, having it's like a Swiss Army knife. As much as you can have that cross genre of a bike, is it'll give you more options to explore. Going into versatility
The calendar was great because it gave people a chance to see a side of my versatility.
of motorcycles, there's two things that stand out to me is the adventure bike versus a naked sport bike. So for those people that are like, well, what's an adventure bike or what's a naked sport bike? Go into a little bit of detail on a couple of bikes that you know about, that you like to, that you gravitate to.
Yeah, you know, the way I think about it is I think about the lineage of where these bikes came from.
Who are your parents?
And it's like, let's talk about a standard. A standard, my first bike was a Suzuki, an 81 Suzuki GS 850.
Hmm.
And that's a standard bike. You know, your legs are at 90 degrees, your back's at 90 degrees, your arms are, you know, up 90 degrees. And it's just like a middle of the road, you know, not a quite a cruiser, not, you know, not a sport bike. Um, and then a dirt bike, we all know what a dirt bike looks like. Um, if those two bikes had a baby, that's kind of an adventure bike, you know,
You're
is the
right.
way I like to think about it, you know, and like a naked sport bike would be a sport bike and a standard had a baby, and it's a mix between those. And so really adventure bike is really, really, really versatile because you can put street tires on it and it's going to be really capable on the street. You can put some dirt tires on it and you can explore the dirt. Or there's tires that are in the middle, like a 50-50 tire that's designed, for both. And obviously when you're doing that, you're not going to get extremes on either of those, but it's kind of a middle of the road, but it'll let you explore some of those things. And when you're a new rider, you're not going to max out the traction of,
No.
of like a sport touring tire, or even some of these like an 80-20, 80% road, 20% off road. You're just not going to max that out. I've seen brand new riders scraping pegs on a bike, that they've been on for
Yeah.
less than a day, and you get one of those other bikes, and you're not going to bump into the limits of those bikes. I mean, you can drag a knee on an adventure bike if you know what you're doing. You obviously certainly do that on a naked sport bike as well.
One of my friends went from Iowa to Alaska on his adventure bike. He had gravel roads up in Alaska, Canada, but he also had freeway roads. And so very capable. You put a lot of gear on it for the naked sport. That's kind of where we find ourselves. And again, it's like cross. We could go on long trips. We could throw saddlebags on it. We can have the best of both worlds. We got the comfort, but also we enjoy track days as well. But again, versatility is, I think, key when you're first looking at a bike.
Versatility is, again, that's how you discover what you want. That's how you educate yourself on what's even out there, what's even available, what you like and you don't know.
Yeah.
Until
Instead
you
of
try
like
it.
instead of like really pigeonholing your budget into one bike, try to get one that covers two different genres of riding.
Absolutely.
Hey guys, thanks so much for hanging out. We have more videos coming to you for this series on helping you pick the right motorcycle. So go ahead and like and subscribe. Turn on the notifications so you get notified when we have more information for you. Catch you later and ride safe.